Hostages. That word is everywhere. It has become part of everything we think about. It is part of everything we are since October 7th. When the terribly violent, horrible, bestial Hamas terrorists invaded our country on October 7th, they not only killed and murdered people and mutilated and raped women and carried out some of the most heinous crimes against humanity, but they captured more than 200 people, elderly, men and women, children, babies, and ordinary people, young people that were at a party, captured to Gaza and never notified anyone. You know, there was no list. There was no release of information. These are the people we are carrying. How do we know? How do we know who is there? How do we even have their names? Well, families know who's missing. Families know whose bodies have not been identified. And Hamas boasted about their terrible crimes, and they put out videos on social media showing some of the people that they had captured. And intelligence and ordinary citizens combed the internet to find evidence what happened to all these missing people. And that is how the list was put together of all the people who had been captured. And Hamas has admitted to holding these people, and we have now entered into an agreement with Hamas via intermediaries, via Qatar and Egypt, for the gradual release of 50 hostages, children and their mothers, and some other women. Now, when there are more than 200 hostages being held, 50 sounds like very little. But every single person there is somebody that a family is missing, is desperate to find out how they are. The hostage agreement, the release agreement, the hostage deal with Hamas has been one that is very difficult. I would say most people in the country support the agreement, but with a heavy heart. It comes with a price. First of all, the very fact of entering into a deal with Hamas means you're recognizing Hamas as a partner. We certainly don't recognize Hamas as a partner in anything. And yet we have no choice if we want these people back. And I think when Hamas took these hostages, they knew and saw something in us, in Israel, which they view as a weakness. Is it a weakness? It might actually be a strength. It is certainly something I would never change. It is the fact that in Israel, we care for each other. We care for our people. And even more than that, I would say every democratic country the government feels responsible for its citizens, and that is no different in Israel. But what is different in Israel is that there are no degrees of separation between people in Israel. Every single person in Israel knows somebody who knew a family whose relatives were killed in the attack on October 7th, who knows somebody was captured into Gaza. And even if you don't know them personally or you don't know a friend of a friend, you are feeling and hurting and identifying in such a deep and profound way with the families who are deeply anxious over their loved ones. You cannot help but want to help them. And so when there's an opportunity to save these people and bring them to freedom and bring them out of the clutches of Hamas, of course, you want to do it. But what is the price? The price is that we are releasing 3 times the number of deadly terrorists for each person released, that we are stopping our capture of Gaza. We are stopping our fighting. Now, we are not retreating from Gaza. We are staying in place. Our army is there. But whereas the plans for the army were to continue capturing Gaza, moving further south, all that right now is put on hold. And we have agreed to a break in fighting for 4 days, on the anticipation that at the end of those 4 days we will have received 50 hostages back. But What is happening now and what we expected is that Hamas is starting to play with us. And they're going to say, oh, give me another day and I'll give you another few hostages. And there's no question Israel is resolute right now that if Hamas breaches the agreement in any material way, we are immediately going to go and resume the fighting. But what's material? And at what point do you resume the fighting and give up on the chance of releasing more hostages? And so the dilemma that was put before the government of Israel was a dilemma that none of us want to be in a position that we had to make that decision. And I think we all recognize, and you know, we saw the pictures of the first groups of hostages, the children coming home. And I keep remember the child, that Ohad, who ran to his father and gave him the biggest hug, 9 years old, and was held for 50 days by Hamas. I can't imagine what that child was going through. I can't imagine what his father was going through, waiting and not even knowing for sure if his son, his 9-year-old son, was alive or dead. So, you know, this is where we are. We empathize and we want these children and these women and men and elderly, we want them home. But what we also want is for Israel, for the IDF, to finish the job. There can be no existence. There could be no Israel that tolerates the existence of Hamas. Not in Gaza, not anywhere else. And if there's one thing we learned from what happened on October 7th, is we can no longer fool ourselves that Hamas can be contained, that you can do a deal with Hamas. And the same, by the way, can be said with Hezbollah in the north. And the same can be said with many of the Arabs, certainly the terrorists who live here in Judea and Samaria. We're going to have to do this one by one. We're going to have to destroy Hamas in Gaza. We are then going to have to destroy Hezbollah, or at least push them north of the Litani River, giving us a buffer zone between northern Israel and Hezbollah in the north. And we're going to have to show the same lack of tolerance for any kind of terrorism here in Judea and Samaria. The Jewish people have come home to Israel. We have come home to our own land. And the Palestinians, since our independence, or since before that, since the first Zionists returned to Israel, have been doing whatever they can to push us out, to destroy us. There are people who tried to pretend that they really didn't want to destroy us. They wanted to just draw the border in a different place to make sure that they too had a Palestinian state. No, that is not what they want. They want no Israel. They want from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free of all Jews, that we should be in the sea. And we, the people of Israel, can no longer tolerate that. We may have months, even years of serious fighting ahead of us, but we dare not stop. We dare not give up. Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel live, and with God's help, we will continue moving forward. We will bring our hostages home, but at the same time, we will fight to defeat our enemies completely. Have a wonderful day.